This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
Will still be a significant senator as long as his health holds up.
End the politicization and the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Do what's right. Do your jobs.
We're not leaving. We're not leaving.
I have never in my career, in 38 years, covered more snow in the South on the beaches.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. It is 18 degrees at our studios in Bath, New York, 8 degrees with that wind chill, but we're going to gain 25 degrees by Monday. A warm-up is a-coming. Kevin has more in minutes. A staple for a generation in the U.S. Senate is on his way out.
Representing our Commonwealth has been the honor of a lifetime.
Republican Senator Mitch McConnell announcing he'll not seek an 8th term. The Kentucky lawmaker was the longest-serving Senate leader in U.S. history, 40 years logged in the chamber. He will serve the remainder of his term ending in January 2027. University of Virginia political professor Larry Sabato says McConnell is a force to be reckoned with.
He will still be a significant senator as long as his health holds up for those 2 years. And he's already made it very clear by voting against several of the Trump nominees for cabinet.
McConnell gave a yes vote today, though, to Kash Patel. The final tally, 51-49, and that means Patel is the next director of the FBI. Democrat Dick Durbin had a few words this morning before the roll call.
My Senate Republican colleagues are willfully ignoring myriad red flags about Mr. Patel, especially his recurring instinct to threaten retribution against his perceived enemies.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz says the only enemy is the criminal.
If you look at what President Trump campaigned on across the country, one of the core promises Donald Trump made to this nation is that he would end the politicization and the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI. He would bring integrity back to DOJ and the FBI. That's exactly what Kash Patel will do. Not weaponize it against Democrats, but bring the FBI back to its core mission of stopping bad guys and enforcing the law regardless of party.
There are now staff at 30 prisons, not 24, striking across New York State. On Wednesday, a judge signed a temporary order that stops the strikes, but workers are resisting.
We're not leaving. We're not leaving.
The issue, safety, salary, and staffing. Guards say since the state instituted criminal justice reforms, assaults on them have increased.
Everybody's worried about the convicts. Nobody's worried about the officers.
Inmates are assaulting staff, and they can get away with it.
When you're in there with all these criminals, day in and day out, they see you more than your own family sees you.
Guards who refuse to vacate the picket lines face contempt of court charges. Governor Kathy Hochul.
As governor, my number one job is to protect the people of this state. Do what's right. Do your jobs.
Negotiations should start with the state soon. Aviation safety discussed on Capitol Hill today after a series of aircraft crashes. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy's angered over Donald Trump's firing of FAA employees.
As soon as Trump takes over, they start firing FAA employees. So instead of fixing the problem, they are creating a new crisis at FAA.
The CEO of Delta Airlines, Ed Bastian, one of the largest airlines in the U.S., disagrees.
The reality is there's over 50,000 people that work at the FAA, and the cuts, I understand, were 300 people.
Everyone injured during a plane crash at a Canadian airport has now been released from the hospital. 21 people were hurt earlier this week when a Delta Airlines flight flipped over at Toronto Pearson International Airport. 3 were in critical condition, all of them now safely at home. There's been a horrific attack on Christians in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Open Doors Ministry says militants from the ISIS-affiliated Allied Democratic Forces approached homes in the middle of the night and took 20 Christian men and women captive. When the local community met later to come up with a plan to win the captives' release, the militants attacked again and took 50 more Christians prisoner. All were later found dead inside a Protestant church.
The group is considered one of the deadliest armed factions in the Kivu region. The Democratic Republic of Congo now ranks 35th on the Open Doors International's World Watch list, having risen 6 places since last year due to an increase in violence against Christians.
Open Doors says many Christians have now fled the area, fearing for their safety. There were snowball fights on the streets of Virginia Beach last night. They got nearly a foot of snow.
We did not prepare. We didn't expect this. We thought it was just going to be a little bit of, a little dusty.
You know, it's a big deal when famed weatherman Jim Cantori is on the scene. He says the South is setting snow records. First Florida beaches and now Virginia Beach.
I have never in my career, 38 years, covered more snow in the South on the beaches of the Gulf and the Southeast than I had this year.
Towns near Lake Ontario in New York get the record, though. They've logged 300 inches of snow this season. Another half a foot of snow is due for the lake belts later tonight. And scientists at the University of Virginia believe they've made a discovery that could help reverse male pattern baldness. NBC reporter Michael Kastner.
Give me a head with hair, long, beautiful hair.
A study published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation details recent tests done on a protein called CROX20. The tests show that stem cells containing the protein may be responsible for hair growth. Small amounts of the protein are present in hair follicles beneath the scalp, even in those who are already bald or balding. Researchers think reactivating the protein found in those follicles could lead to new hair growth. I'm Michael Kastner.
Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, the guards speak in that New York corrections strike. Wegmans is limiting your egg purchases, and the VA chaplain relegated to stocking shelves after giving a sermon in Pennsylvania. Those stories after weather with Kevin Williams.
Our winter weather pattern keeps on keeping on. We'll have some more cold air and still some snow to tell you about, from an inch or less in central and eastern Pennsylvania to a few inches in parts of western New York. The low temps in the teens. For tomorrow, clouds, flurries, then some sunshine, high temps, low 20s. But the bitter air will relent and more moderate temperatures are due for the weekend. High temperatures then in the lower 30s.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. New York corrections officers are refusing to end the work stoppage at more than 30 prisons across the state. This ex-guard encourages state leaders to walk a mile in their shoes.
They need to listen to these guys, and they need to come down here and work one 8-hour shift and see what they deal with down here.
2017 is when New York began implementing controversial criminal justice reforms. A judge has ordered the strikes going on right now to stop. 9 prison guards at the Marcy Correctional Facility in Oneida County, New York, appeared before a judge today. They're accused in the beating death of an inmate back in December. This is the inside of that courtroom this afternoon.
You are charged with 1 count of the felony offense of murder in the 2nd degree and 1 count of the felony offense of manslaughter in the 1st degree.
Robert Brooks Jr. was punched and kicked while in handcuffs at the prison's infirmary. His death was later ruled a homicide.
With the nature of the way this man was treated, there was obviously a felony taking place. So at the very least, there's a felony murder, which brings it up to a murder charge.
Attorney Bob Brenna interviewed by Spectrum News. Wegmans just limited the number of eggs you can purchase because of the bird flu. The company's website says people can now only buy up to 10 cartons of a dozen eggs at a time. Egg prices have nearly doubled in the last year because of the bird flu. New York's governor has opted not to remove New York City's mayor from office, at least for now. An update from Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, amid a flap over allegations against fellow Democrat Eric Adams and a Trump administration move to throw out the case being built against him, Governor Kathy Hochul today has decided to not use her powers to remove Adams, for the time being anyway. However, it comes with a caveat that she plans to limit Adams' authority by assigning a deputy state attorney general to oversee him. Such a move would require action by the state legislature and the New York City Council. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Pennsylvania politicians are split over a proposal to legalize recreational marijuana. Governor Shapiro wants it so he can tax it and raise revenue. But Republican State Senator Scott Martin says pot has no future in Pennsylvania.
I don't see that issue going anywhere with my Senate Republican caucus, and for many different reasons.
Martin fears marijuana legalization will cause more problems than it'll solve. Democrat Sharif Street.
Guess what? We need money.
Pennsylvania needs revenue. And why should we let people in New Jersey, New York, and Ohio get our revenue from our citizens who are buying it over there?
Republicans argue the profits promised by Pott never materialize. A Veterans Administration chaplain in Pennsylvania was restricted from his job of preaching for 5 months last year after he gave a sermon on sexual sin. Reporter Greg Gillespie talked with the chaplain's lawyer, Randall Wenger, for Faith Under Fire. Let's listen in.
So Chaplain Rusty Truby was preaching a sermon at Veterans Administration Hospital in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, on Romans 1. A police officer who works there at the Veterans Administration showed up and spoke with him after the sermon because apparently he received some criticism that day on the content of the sermon. And that criticism included criticism from his supervisor, who took him off of chaplain duty for many, many months. We need to be protecting those who are serving our country and serving our country even in the way that Chaplain Truby is. There's a real purpose behind the chaplain corps. So government officials should never be in a position for censoring sermons.
And this happened in Pennsylvania. Give us the timeline for that.
Yeah, he preached a sermon in June of 2024. And it was not until after Thanksgiving of 2024 that he was allowed to return to his chaplain duties. And that's really what he loves. The reason that he works at the Veterans Administration is because he feels called by God to minister to people, to preach sermons and to be able to sit down and counsel folks one-on-one. So to have those duties taken away from him is more than just a shift in a job. It's taking away his ministry.
What other feedback did he hear from people? One person complained, 17 people complained, 85% of them were happy.
Well, he said that most people stayed there to the end and listened to his sermon. And it was a sermon like you or I would have heard going to church. And of course, it was Romans 1, so it dealt with sexual sin, and that can be a live wire issue in our culture today. The Bible is meant to convict people, and some people didn't appreciate the truth that was being spoken.
Randall Wenger is chief counsel for the Independence Law Center in Pennsylvania. You can subscribe, listen to, and share this feature, Faith Under Fire. Hear more of it and all of Family Life's original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at familylife.org. Time next for tonight's market report, brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing with stocks sharply lower. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 450 points to 44,176. The S&P 500 fell by 26 points to 61,17, and the Nasdaq dropped by 93 points to 19,962. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
Wills versus trusts. What's the difference? Hi, I'm Rob West with another Faith and Finance Minute. A will is a legal document that spells out how you want your assets distributed at death. Wills go through your local probate court, and if you die without one, the court distributes your assets according to state law. The simplest trust, on the other hand, is called a living or revocable trust, and it goes into effect while you're still alive. Then, upon your death, the trust skips probate, and the person you designate as your successor trustee distributes your assets to the beneficiaries you've named with a minimum of trouble. So a will versus a trust. You need one or the other to ensure your assets go where you want when you go home to be with the Lord. Manage your finances wisely with the easy-to-use FaithFi app. Download FaithFi, Faith and Finance from your app store, or learn more at faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, a famed boat docked in Pennsylvania has made its farewell voyage. We've got that story after weather with Kevin Williams.
We've got more cold air ahead for tonight and tomorrow, and a bit more snow as well. But as we head into the weekend, temperatures will moderate a bit, and with little wind, it'll feel a little more comfortable than it has of late. But for tonight, cloudy with some snow and flurries, dusting to an inch for many, a few inches though, south and southeast of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, low temps teens for most. Tomorrow, some leftover flurries, some breaks of sun, high temperatures, low to mid-20s. Saturday, clouds to start for some, but some sun developing with high temperatures then in the lower 30s.
Thank you, Kevin. Finally, at 5, it is the end of an era. The 1,000-foot-long ocean liner SS United States left the harbor in Philadelphia today for the final time to the sound of cheering crowds.
I am absolutely going to miss seeing it.
Well, I watched it for 30 years, and I was hoping it would be saved, but it wasn't. So I got to say goodbye to it. It's just a part of my life.
Built in the 1950s, it is the largest boat made in the U.S. and the fastest across the Atlantic. It'll be sunk off the coast of Florida as a haven for scuba divers. This woman will run that underwater dive museum. She promised she'll make sure that it honors those in Pennsylvania who have loved this ship for 70 years.
We will make sure that we're telling her history appropriately, and she'll be embraced by our dive community and our visitors and our local residents.
And that's the world that we live in for Thursday, the 20th of February. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.